Okay, cool. So yeah, like I said, just excited to be here and excited to have some of these conversations. The idea for this space today stemmed a lot from feedback we got from farmers who are part of Big River Farms in the past and who are returning this year, just wanting to establish some of those potential wholesale buyer relationships with external partners outside of the food group and outside of Big River Farms. And also from buyers who have reached out over the past year and a half from various capacities who are excited about Big River Farms and really are drawn to our mission and want to support you all as Big River Farms farmers and potentially purchase wholesale bulk produce from you for their various ventures. So we've got a few different folks that I'm kind of categorizing broadly as buyers who are joining us today, including folks who are, restaurant owners. We've got somebody on the call who's a part of a big food hub. Some folks who are doing CSA, a produce buyer from a local food co-op. Ariel, who's joining us, will be teaching a class coming up here on approaching various markets from a farmer perspective. So he'll be sharing some of his insights on that today with you all. And a couple other business owners. So excited to start having some of these conversations. I thought we could start off if everyone who is a Big River Farms farmer on the call, if you'd like to introduce yourself, say your name, your farm business name if you have one, and then maybe how many years that you've been farming. And feel free to pass it too.
Interpreter mode? Am I on interpreter mode?
No, we can hear you, Zong. Sorry, you're still in the main room. I was going to keep interpreter mode off just for introductions, but then I'll break them out.
Because I didn't want to start talking and then interrupt everyone else. Okay.
Yeah, good point. Thanks for bringing that up, Zong.
Okay.
Yeah, so I should mention we've got two interpreters joining us today too. Zong Li, who will be interpreting in Hmong, and Andres, who will be interpreting in Spanish.
Tenemos dos intérpretes hoy, uno que es Zong Li, que va a interpretar al Hmong, y yo, Andrés Díaz, que voy a interpretar al español.
Gracias, Andrés.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll keep the audio open just for introductions, but then I'll turn on interpretation.
Vamos a tener el audio para todos durante la presentación para que ustedes den su nombre y después nos vamos a ir a la función de interpretación.
I don't mind you putting me on directly interpreting, so that way the person that needs interpretation could hear the rest. I could interpret the rest without interrupting too. I don't know. Yeah. It's up to you guys. Okay.
We can do that too.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so I just started the interpretation function. So those rooms should be open, those audio rooms. If anybody would like.
Ya se inició la función de interpretación, Mario. Si usted quiere interpretación, por favor haga clic en el botón de interpretación.
Andres, are you in the Spanish room? Okay, it sounds like we're good. Cool. Whitney, do you want to jump off? Just introduce yourself, say your name, if you've got a farm business name, and how many years you've been farming or what your relationship to farming is.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm a beginning farmer. My name is Whitney Terrell. It's my first year as I'll be an independent farmer. My thoughts are to name the farm Asfora Farm, but we'll see. Asfora means bird. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here. I've volunteered on an organic farm before and serve on the board of that organization right now. But yeah, it's going to be a large learning curve for me, but I'm happy to be here with you guys.
Thanks, Whitney. Do you want to pass it off to another farmer?
Sure. Can I pass it to, Emilio's staff? I don't know if that's, I don't know if you want to go, sorry.
Yeah, you can pass it to Emilio.
Okay, sorry, I know your staff.
Thank you, Whitney. My name is Emilio. I'm part of the staff of the Big River Farm. So my position is a sustainability coordinator. So yeah, my experience with farms, I've been farming almost 10 years, but not here. I have a farm in South America. So yeah, that is. I'm going to May. Can you continue, please?
Yes. Hi, everybody. I am Mei Li. My name is Dad, but my husband don't speak English, and so he's here too. And so his name is Chuli, and you can be able to see him. He's here. That's him. He's right in the corner. Yeah, and so I'm working at Big River Farm, and so I been there for 15 years. This is my going to my 15, and so just let everybody know, you're gonna see me a lot at the greenhouse or everywhere over the farm. And so I farm over there too, and me and Chu this year Chu gonna do 1 acre, maybe a little bit more, depend on how the crop coming up. And so yeah, thank you.
Thanks, May. Do you want to pass it to somebody? Oh, you're muted, May.
Wait, sorry, to Marisa. She's not here, baby. To you, Matt.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like maybe Marissa's not on right now. How about Mallory?
Hi everyone, I'm Mallory. I'm a farmer at Big River Farms. My partner Lucas and I, we run Alyasio Farm, that's the name. It's a word in Lucas's native language of Oneida that means good heart. And that kind of encompasses how we strive to be as farmers. We have 2 acres and it's going to be our 3rd year at Big River Farms, and both of us have some experience before we came to Big River Farms. How about Veda?
Thank you. My name is Veda Reddy, and I'm a first-year Big River farmer. I haven't finalized my farm name yet, but it'll happen in the next couple of weeks. I've had experience farming in California and India, but not in the Minnesota weather. So this year is going to be a real test of what I can, grow in the farm. Thank you. Mario? Andres, do you want to translate for him?
I might have to switch off interpretation for a minute so we can get back the audio from Andres and Mario. 1 second.
¿Me escucha? Okay. Es mi primer año acá en la granja. Tengo poca experiencia en el campo y será una muy bonita experiencia trabajar con todos ustedes ahí en la granja. Es todo. No sé, para el otro año a lo mejor ya tenga mejores comentarios.
Gina, Ningolina, hello, May,
Hello.
Lochstone, Tunan, Silo, ye, Andres, Marie, Silo, basically, Power, ya, you Jana Andre, hello, la. Mario.
Mario has just talked to us, and he said
Mario,
that
Hatia,
he is, this is his first year,
and
he hopes to get a good crop
Nisa,
and to learn a lot from the experience.
Mario, ye Mario, Halindo.
Y tendré más, and I will have more news for you next year, depending on how it goes.
Tầm đây nó muốn ngồi lì chỉ nói lên thứ hai lô rồi ạ.
Oh, I think Matt is in silence, mute.
Oops, sorry. Thanks, Andres. I was saying now that we have the audio channels open again, before we switch back to the
Yeah,
separate
what about the
interpretation
color?
channels,
Picture
do we
the
have
no,
anyone
no.
else?
No, no, basically no. Andres, hello, na yo. Yin tell in the.
Maybe Dee's mom or May, if your husband wants to introduce himself.
每天啲個年呢不啥，他們जी人呢都看嘅俾佢哋踩到天，就考18點鐘每天呢，我哋比較凶了呢。
Hello,
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
the
sure.
mom.
Đi mom.
Good morning, everyone. This is the mom. My name is Zuali, and
Buenos días a todos.
yeah, I have experience working at a farm in my country. Long time, maybe 10 years, and then I come to the United States, Minnesota. I farming maybe like a 5 years outside, and then 1 year experience at Big River Farm. So I'm very happy, and I want to continue do more year. Thank you.
Thank you, Zua.
Okay, Chu gonna speak. Go ahead, Thomas.
Oh, okay. Chu says he's just happy to be here, and he is here to.
Él dice que está muy contento de estar aquí.
He's here to basically. Can you guys hear me? I hear
pueden oír?
Andrews talking. I think it's because we're both in the same room. I apologize.
Estamos en
It's
el
just
mismo
weird. I
canal.
haven't been in this position. So, anyhow, Chu's glad to be here, and he says that he's ready to see what we have to learn today and to gain more knowledge from what we have, what Big River Farms offer for today. It's just a very simple comment, and that's it.
Thanks, Song. Thank you, Chu. It looks like we have, let's see, who else hasn't introduced themselves? It looks like Pierce just joined us. Pierce, do you want to introduce yourself? We're just introducing farmers. Do you want to share your name and your farm team name and how many years you've been farming?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So my name's Pierce. I farm out here at Big River with my wife, Eleanor, going into our second year farming out here. And Strongheart Farms is our name. We have a website. Go check us out. We do the Stillwater Farmers Market in the summer. We're also doing the winter Stillwater Farmers Market. We have a small CSA program, and then we're just getting into some wholesale this year as well.
Thanks, Pierce.
Yeah.
Fario, are you on the line? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Matt. My name is Fario. I believe I'm here the first year on Big River Farm. Very grateful with our team, SAPI, Somali American Farmers. My father had several farms back home in Somalia, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity and grateful the Big River Farm to be our first year this year. So thank you, and I'll pass it to Worst if she's here. Thank you.
Hi, I can't talk. I'm in the bank, so
don't worry,
the
Forrest.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We can hear you. Do you want to say anything else for us?
Yeah, hi. My name is I have a background farming. We had it last year. A farm also live. I forget Silver Lake, but we are first year to be here, and we'll see what goes. Thank you.
Thank you, Fario and Boris. I think that was everybody. Did we miss any Big River Farms farmers that would like to introduce themselves still?
Yeah, hi, this is Aridala. So this is my first year at Big River Farm and I'm learning. So I'm mostly joining to learn about farming and agriculture.
Awesome. Thanks, Aridolia.
Thank
Sorry
you.
we skipped you.
Oh, no problem.
I'm trying to track everybody here in the participation list. Is there anybody else who we missed that would like to introduce themselves? Okay, I think we got everybody. Any other staff on the line that we missed? Okay, I think we're good. Fingers crossed. I'll give a little brief intro of myself. My name is Matt. I'm the market specialist at Big River Farms. I've been at the farm for going on 2 years now. This will be my third growing season coming up at Big River Farms. And in my role, I primarily serve as that connection point between farmers in our program and potential markets. So we manage a few markets internally. We've got a 200+ member community supported agriculture program that we manage as Big River Farms, which is kind of unique in that it's an aggregated program. So we create contracts over the winter. So I'm in that process right now with both returning and new Big River Farms farmers to do some crop bidding and figure out what crops they want to grow for our CSA program. We also have what we used to call a farm to food bank program, which was funded by some grant funding and private donor money as another market opportunity for farmers at Big River Farms to be able to still pay them a living wage and pay them fairly for their time and labor and produce, and then donate all that high quality organic food to over 20 local food shelf partners throughout the Twin Cities. So we've got a few things we manage internally. We apply on behalf of Big River Farms for a vendor permit at the Kingfield Farmers Market in South Minneapolis. And farmers in our education program can opt into participating in that too as another potential market opportunity. So those are kind of the big three that we manage and provide support on at Big River Farms. But what our focus on today is external wholesale opportunities and really connecting the buyers and the wholesale folks on the line with the farmers that are with us today as well. So just wanted to give that context. For folks who aren't familiar on the line, Big River Farms is an incubator farm and education farm that provides access to land. We have a big education program. And like I mentioned, access to markets for farmers who are trying to start their own independent businesses. And we're part of a much larger nonprofit called the Food Group that really focuses on hunger relief work, works with a lot of food shelf partners, and has some other programs, including Twin Cities Mobile Market, which is a mobile bus that brings, or a mobile grocery store on an old Metro Transit bus that brings healthy food to folks who have barriers to accessing food in the cities. And then a similar program called Fair for All that's more focused in areas outside of the cities, but similar kind of pop-up markets, bringing food to people who have limited access or are experiencing barriers to accessing healthy food.
Can you at least go out and just check the hoop house?
So yeah, so we've got a few folks that were invited today from outside of Big River Farms from various backgrounds. So I wanted to just hold some space and ask those folks to introduce themselves as well. I'll just list off the folks who are here, so everybody has an idea of who's who, and then we can kind of jump into wholesale buyer or participating wholesale farmer intros. So we've got Nick Knighton here, who's a community organizer with a program called Food for the People, which is a CSA program. David Van Eeckhout is the farm program manager at the Good Acre, the big food hub near the U of M campus and the state fairgrounds in the cities. And he's gonna talk a little bit about some of their wholesale opportunities. Emily Pilz is on the line, the sustainability manager for a local business in Maplewood called Sustainable Safari. And she's looking to source some local produce for animal feed, so she can speak some more to that. Arial Pressman is the Director of Certification with an organization called the Real Organic Project. And he can talk a little bit more about that. And Ariel is going to present at an upcoming class, like I mentioned, on from a farmer perspective, accessing various markets and his experience doing that in the past. So maybe you could give a shout out to that too, Ariel, when we get to your intro. And we invited him here today, just again, to just share that perspective from a farmer experience, farmer perspective of accessing and selling to small, mid-scale, and larger wholesale markets. Kate Sidoti is here, who is the owner and chef of BRIM Restaurant, which is a local independent restaurant in South Minneapolis. So she's interested in sourcing local produce for their menu and worked with a few Big River farmers last year, including Pierce, who's on the line here today for some wholesale purchases. And we also have Trista Boe, who is the produce manager at River Market Co-op in Stillwater, and is thinking about creating a program or trying to source more local produce for sale in their grocery store. So welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. Thanks for taking the time. We'll open it up if you'd like to introduce yourselves and say a little bit more about what you do or what you're interested in how you're interested in supporting Big River Farms farmers, how we can connect, and what your wholesale opportunities might look like. So Nick, if we want to start with you, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nick Knighton. I'm the program manager with Food for the People. This is our third season. We originally founded the program in partnership with Shared Ground Farmers Cooperative, which is since no longer a cooperative. The farmers still exist and the relationship still exists, but the co-op does not exist anymore. So the past 2 seasons, we've distributed 3,000 CSA boxes for free to local metropolitan Black, Indigenous communities of color, while paying Shared Ground farmers and other partner farms over $80,000. So our program kind of mission is to pay farmers a living wage and distribute CSA boxes door to door to folks in our BIPOC community. We partner with Divine Natural Ancestry, who help find the recipients of the boxes. So this year, since Shared Ground no longer exists, we're trying to develop partnerships to source the CSA boxes that we distribute. So we pack the boxes at the Good Acre, and then I manage a team of volunteers to drive the boxes all over the metropolitan. So we kind of envision a food system that's local, closed loop, where people are able to get nutrient dense, healthy food for free without barriers, financial or otherwise, and be able to pay local farmers a living wage for the food they produce. So we think everyone deserves healthy food, and people should be able to grow food and have a dignified job that pays a living wage doing it. So that's kind of our mission. So we're looking, to find upwards of, I think our goal is 100 CSAs for around 18 weeks. So I'd love to connect and talk about sourcing CSAs. Thanks so much. Pleasure to meet you all.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Nick mentioned the Good Acre, so I feel like that's a good segue for David if you're up for talking about the Good Acre and some of the wholesale programs that are available through the Food Hub there.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So my name is David Van Eeckhout. I am the farm program director at the Good Acre. I am not one of our buyers. We have a couple of buyers who work for different programs, but my relationship with farmers is more from an assistance standpoint, and some of you know me because of that. But I can talk to our wholesale program. So we're a food hub on Larpenteur Avenue in St. Paul. We basically have 3 programs that are purchasing food from farmers, and that's number 1, we have a wholesale program. Number 2, we have a farm share program, which is similar to a CSA program. And number 3, we have a program called LEAFF, which we started 2 years ago as a result of the pandemic. And that program has continued even as the pandemic is hopefully slowing down. We're going to continue that program because it's been so successful and the farmers are happy and the recipients of the food are happy. So we're going to keep going with it. So if you're interested in selling to the Good Acre, there's a few things to know. And number one is that if for this year, you know, all our contracting for the wholesale program and the farm share program is pretty much wrapped up by this time of year. So when you're thinking about like, hey, I'm at a place where I might want to actually contract to grow something with a larger customer, you need to be thinking about that and having those conversations in November really is a good time to start that conversation and hopefully get it kind of nailed down by the end of the year so that you know what seeds you need to buy and how much and what quantities of everything. So that's when you get to that kind of scale, that's kind of the timeline you want to be thinking about. I know as farmers, we like to think that like, oh, November, I finally have some downtime, but in terms of thinking about next year, when you get to that size that you want to contract, that's really a time to start thinking about that. So most of our contracts are set for the year. We actually have contracts with right around 50 farmers this year. And the vast majority of those are farmers of color, probably 45 out of the 50. The LEAFF program is exclusive to BIPOC farmers. So that program is a better intro program for farmers. We don't necessarily encourage beginning farmers for that program because it's meant to support farmers who already have a business and are trying to sustain their business and expand their business rather than trying to support farmers who are just getting started. But the nice thing about the LEAFF program is it's our lowest barrier opportunity to kind of get your feet wet with wholesale, you know, because the quantities, you can basically bring in whatever you have in whatever quantity you have it, as long as it's on our list and as long as you still have funds to use. So just a little bit about the LEAFF program is you get allocated a certain amount of dollars that you can use to sell produce to the Good Acre. And then that produce is taken and donated to food shelves around the Twin Cities. So it's a really great program in that those dollars not only are going to pay the farmer, but they're also going as produce out back into the community. But so you get allocated a certain number of dollars, say, you know, the first year we did it, it was about $7,500. Last year it was more like $4,500, and it's really dependent on how much funding we get and how many farmers are in the program. So that program, like I said, it's a really easy program because there's very few barriers, but you do have to have things in quantity that you're bringing in cases of stuff, not just one case of something. It's not really probably worth it for folks like that. And again, much like Nick was saying with Food for the People, it's also really around paying a living wage to farmers and trying to sustain good prices, not pennies on the dollar, even though it is ending up in the hunger relief channel. So it's always a battle between those things. We want to get food to as many people as possible, but we also want to pay farmers as much as we can too. So sometimes we have to toe the line between price and quantity. But that program may be open for some of you when we get open with applications. Unfortunately, we don't know how much funding we're going to have for that program until the farm season is already started, at least this year. And so it's hard to predict. And our applications aren't open for it yet because we don't know how much funding we have yet. But I would encourage you, if you're interested in being a part of that program, to go to the Good Acres website and go to the LEAFF page. And LEAFF is spelled L-E-A-F-F. And there's a place there where you can enter your info if you just scroll down that page, and you can be notified when the applications for that program are open. That's about it. And I'm happy to, answer any questions when we get to that point in the program.
Great, thank you, David. A lot of great information, a lot of great points. I'm going to put the link that David just mentioned in the chat if anybody wants to check that out for the LEAFF program. Also, every buyer, every guest who's joining us today, farmers, David, who mentioned that he is more of an assistant role with farmers. All their contact information and websites are in the calendar invite for today if you want to check those out, including website links. But we'll also send that out in a follow-up email too, so you have all their contact info for connecting. I saw, Nick, you put your email address in the chat too. If anybody else who's joining us as a guest today is up for doing that, feel free. Otherwise, we're also planning to share your contact info with all the farmers on the call and those who couldn't join us today too, so we can continue having these discussions and creating those relationships. So thank you, David. Exciting stuff. Like David said, with the LEAFF program, you know, it's a great way to tap into some existing funding to an existing program. It's really similar to what I mentioned the past few years. We were calling our Farm to Food Bank program, which this year at Big River Farms and the food group is going to be the local food for every table program. That's a really great opportunity, especially if you're a first-year farmer in our education program with access to land at Big River Farms, to kind of get that jumping off point of working in a similar kind of model, wholesale model, where we as an organization, as a nonprofit, have all that funding already up front and allocated it out to each of you as new farmers. And it's a really great wholesale learning opportunity and way to get into that kind of wholesale model of growing directly for food shelf partners, that's funded by, you know, grants and private donors. So a good opportunity to kind of figure out what that looks like from a wholesale perspective as a farmer, and use that as an experience to potentially apply in the future to the LEAFF program at the Good Acre. Thanks, David. Like David said, we'll open it up for some questions after we do all these intros. So there'll be plenty of time for all of us to chat too and ask follow-up questions. Let's see, next up on the list, Emily, would you like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about Sustainable Safari?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily. I'm the sustainability specialist at Sustainable Safari. We opened in 2019 in the Maplewood Mall. So I don't know if anybody has heard of us yet, I guess, but so I'm kind of working on ways to make the business as sustainable as possible. And one of the ways I wanted to tackle doing that is to kind of localize the food that we bring in, and especially make it organic. Right now, we kind of wholesale everything from Bix produce. I think they don't really have, they do a good job at sourcing local food, but I don't think that they have enough organic options for what we're kind of looking for. Our animals kind of have a heavy tropical fruit diet, so that really wouldn't fit in here. But we do have a lot of greens and other veggies that do, you know, grow in this climate. So I was kind of thinking that I wanted to localize those veggies as much as possible. And a side note, I actually do also work at a farm in Renshell, Minnesota, the food farm. And I was thinking of ways, or I was just thinking of ideas, and we have these kind of, we call them juice crops. I don't know if that's a universal term, but like the, you know, the ugly carrots that come out of the field that aren't necessarily good for retail situations. I was kind of thinking that those sort of crops would be good for us, you know, because they're just getting processed and just, you know, fed to animals, not necessarily put on a display shelf or anything. And I know that there's always those kinds of crops in harvest. And I don't know if you guys have a you know, a market for that, but I was kind of thinking that we would be a good market for that. Yeah, we order probably 150 pounds of produce every week. And we could do, we could order more than one time a week too, if that works for you guys. Yeah, I don't know what else to say here, but I'm excited to create some relationships with you guys. And I have loved hearing all of your stories about farming, because I too am a farmer and I love it.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about what Sustainable Safari is, what you guys do? I think when you first emailed me, I was under the assumption that maybe you were a restaurant, but then I dug into it and found out that you guys are a totally different business. So if you want to speak to that a little bit, I think it'd be really
Sure.
interesting to hear about what you all do.
Yeah, so we're essentially a petting zoo, and we are kind of like, our whole mission is kind of to educate folks on like different aspects of sustainability and what they can kind of do to make everyday changes in their life. And we kind of want to make the connection between you know, sustainability and wildlife, like how our actions kind of affect ecosystems all over the world, essentially. So yeah, creating the connection between animals and the environment is kind of our mission. And we have I might get this wrong. We have over 100 animals at our facility of all different they're all different kinds of animals. Farm animals, exotic animals, birds, reptiles.
You know, I just looked at the pictures. I just looked at the pictures of at your website. I know I'm definitely going to be coming there.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I
looks like
can
a
link
cool spot.
the website in the chat.
I didn't know such a fantastic place was here in Minnesota.
Yeah, it's I don't think it's too far from Big River Farms either, maybe 30 minutes.
Nice. Awesome. Thanks, Emily. Appreciate it. Like Emily mentioned, we can talk about this more offline too, if all the Big River Farms farmers are interested in discussing kind of the difference between first and second quality produce, or what Emily called juice crops. Those kind of items that maybe aren't the highest quality, maybe they're bruised or blemished or have been hit with like frost or some sort of weather issue, and might not be the greatest for retail sale, like displaying on a shelf, like Emily said, or like at a farmer's market. So we do have a few food hub pricing lists at Big River Farms in the food group that we use for those two different kind of quality standards. So we can talk more about that offline if anybody's interested. And if you're participating in the local food for every table program I mentioned, that new food shelf purchasing program that we're operating at the farm and at the food group this year, let's talk about that too, because that's part of that program as well, just having those different price lists based on the quality of the produce you'd like to sell. So something to think about, both as far as like revenue streams for your business as you're starting your farm business, but also kind of different qualities of produce that you might have, and thinking about markets for those kind of high quality, fresh organic produce, but then those kind of second tier or seconds or juice crop quality crops as well. Trying to think about how you can sell those and get some money from those too. So thanks for bringing that up, Emily. Appreciate it. Next up, Kate from BRIM Restaurant. Would you like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about the restaurant?
Yeah, I'm Kate Sidoti. I am the chef and owner of BRIM Restaurant in South Minneapolis. And first off, I'm just amazed at all the local farms in Minnesota and the adventure and challenges that must bring. We get the easy job of cooking with your amazing ingredients. So just a lot of appreciation for you all. We are a pretty small restaurant. We opened 3 years ago and have used shared farms, co-ops. Like Matt said, we love Strong Heart Farms and kind of trying to go more direct to farms. We use about 400 to 500 pounds of produce a week. So we use a really vegetable heavy menu, and our setup is counter service for the model of the intention to have more budget for organic produce. So we focus a lot of our hours on prep work and prep the prep team, because that we're not buying Cisco cut up onions. We like to support you all as much as possible and learn ways to do so. We also have a booth at the state fair where we use about 350 pounds of blueberries that are from Minnesota, from a farm out by Rochester. That's pretty fun. And the jam is stored at the Good Acres. So kind of small connections all around on this chat, but really interested to be here and just ways to buy direct and as local as possible, given the Minnesota challenges of the year-round menu. But I'm excited for this season to be here and be able to buy direct.
Great, thanks, Kate. Thanks for being here. Trista, would you like to talk about the co-op you work at and what you're doing for sourcing local produce?
Sure, I would love to. So just a little backstory. I was produce manager at River Market Co-op in Stillwater for 13 years, left to move to a wholesale environment, and worked with a group of Amish farmers. In years past, I actually bought some things from Arial years ago, like too many years ago, I think, probably. But so I'm in a unique situation. I came back to the co-op in December and was left with a completely dismantled organic program for my local season coming up. So I am in, I'm in the rebuilding stage. So I'm looking for a lot of farmers to provide a lot of different things. I always kind of likened us to a good jumping off point for people. I think we're pretty into helping people grow their skills as far as coming up with retailable products. We're being in Stillwater, we're surrounded by big groceries. You know, we're a little store right on Main Street. We're what, 12 miles at the most from Big River. And actually I live almost halfway between Big River and the store. So I'm sure some of you have probably passed through. My husband and I are organic dairy farmers for Organic Valley. And oftentimes we'll, sell hay and straw and things like that to people who need it as well. I've pretty much got a wide open local season ahead of me. So I would love to work with as many of you as possible. And I'm trying hard to spread the love out across many farmers as opposed to allowing any one farmer to own the entire case. My goal is to have 100% local products in my wet case. So that would be exclusive to the fruits or to the veggies. If you come to me with an avocado, I'm going to get really scared because that shouldn't happen here. But I'm sure someday it will, who knows? I'm just really excited to have the opportunity to work with you guys, to help some of you guys grow in whatever direction it is that you want. I know a lot of our farmers in the past have gone from our store to bigger and better things, to either a more wholesale position or to go into the larger co-ops in the Twin Cities because, hopefully it's because we've helped you achieve, the skills that you need to be able to produce that type of product or that quantity of product in a consistent manner. I guess that's about all I got for the most part right now, anyway.
Great, thanks, Trista. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining us. And last but not least, I think we have Ariel, who Trista just mentioned. I love seeing all the small world connections. It's great seeing the relationships that already exist and how we can keep building those with everybody. So Ariel, if you'd like to talk a little bit about Real Organic Project and your role there, maybe touch on how Big River Farms is certified organic through Real Organic Project. And then, if you want to touch on your perspective as a farmer who has experience selling to wholesale, any insights you can provide our farmers as they're starting to think about getting into those kinds of markets.
Sure, thank you, Trista. It's really fun to see you. I was selling produce to Trista when I was at the stage that I think many of the farmers here are, where you're just trying to figure out how to work with wholesale markets. I remember still just bringing stuff when I only had a half box worth of stuff, and it was cool to see it in the store. So I'll start with my current job is I work as the director of certification for a nonprofit called the Real Organic Project. We don't do the organic certification for Big River, we do an add-on certification. And the basic idea of Real Organic Project is to help provide some differentiation to farmers like everybody on this call that are doing their organic farming with real concern for the environment and their community and the land, and help provide some separation from the fact that there's, you know, many enormous corporate farms out there that just want the label and they don't care as much if it's actually healthy for the people and if it's actually healthy for the land. It's more about finding ways around the rules than finding ways to do the spirit of the rules. So we work with about 800 farmers across the country, and we're really proud to work with Big River and everybody that's there to, again, really be able to lift up folks that are you know, within the spirit of the movement, and really care about why we do this as farmers and why as customers we buy these products. So and so yeah, we certify Big River, which means that in turn we certify all the operations here. And I'll just give a quick shout out. Big River does all the paperwork for everybody, but we have a directory, and if any farm would like to get individually listed in our directory so people can contact you if they're interested in buying your stuff, I'll talk to Matt and we can make that happen, because I want to make sure people have the ability to market themselves individually, especially if you're looking to eventually move out of the incubator and onto your own. So I'm probably more here though, because I was an organic farmer for 10 years, very close to Big River. I was in Balsam Lake, Wisconsin. And I specifically did wholesale markets for almost my whole career. So I started selling to, almost exactly like Trista was saying, selling to smaller co-ops and restaurants. And I used to sell to a lot of restaurants in Stillwater when I stopped in at the co-op. And then I moved on to working with school districts and some larger places. And by the time I was done, I was mostly selling to supermarket chains and co-ops. So I'm honestly really here to just be an open resource to both the buyers and the farmers. If there's anything I can do to provide information for the growers about what it means to grow for these markets and what it means, like when Trista's saying, you know, if you need a case of something, it might just be, if you haven't done it yet, you might not know how many bunches of kale go in a case, or how many leaves go in the bunches of kale, or even what variety of kale you should be growing. I went through a lot of those growing pains myself, so I'm happy to help folks kind of avoid some of those speed bumps. And I would also say for the buyers, I know working with local farmers is very different than working with the Bix truck or Sodexo. And it sounds like everybody on this call has already done a lot of the hard work, but I'm also more than happy to chat or talk with any of you about, from a farmer perspective, how you can make things easier working with farmers and make it a more welcoming environment for folks. So I think, like Matt said, I won't go into details because I'm going to be doing a course or for a lot of the farmers on this call anyways in the near future on wholesale. But yeah, I put my information in the chat box. Just please know, anybody on this call, I'm always happy to chat and provide help. Just let me know what you need. And I'll also be probably coming out to Big River at some point, because I live in Minneapolis now, and I'd be more than happy to walk the fields with anybody that would like to get their hands dirty with me and wants to talk about specifics. So that's what I got. Thanks, Matt.
Great, thanks, Ariel. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Yeah, like Ariel said, he's teaching a class for us as part of our program coming up here on Monday, March 14th. So in a little less than 2 weeks, talking about the pros and cons of navigating different wholesale markets. So if you're interested, come to that class. It'll be at 5 p.m. on Monday, March 14th to learn more. And like Ariel mentioned, thanks so much for your shout outs and your offer of helping farmers out and being a resource. We appreciate you doing that. Okay, I think I hit everybody yet. Do we miss anyone on the call? Okay, cool. So we've got some time. We've got about a little more than an hour left. Let's maybe take a 5-minute break if people want to grab a drink, get some water, go to the bathroom, do a little stretching, and we'll come back at 10 and jump into some question and answer sessions. Thanks, everybody. See you at 10.
Hi, Ariel. I have a question for you.
Yeah, of course.
I was looking at your website and, it's really nice what you're trying to do because I did see the USDA organic standards were getting diluted.
Yeah.
And then one thing, one of the reasons I wanted to move into farming this year was just because of the whole supply chain dislocation that's happening.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've been noticing is that everywhere the pesticide things have been destroyed completely so that even the bigger farmers can't farm. And I was looking at alternatives and, I came across homeopathy remedies that were used. So is homeopathy remedies allowed as part of the organics thing or no?
Yeah, it just depends what they are. So like everything, if you're using it on a certified organic farm, it either has to be OMRI listed. So some people make kind of the home remedies and then they'll get it certified by this organization called OMRI. The other option is it's always the safest bet to email your organic certifier. So Matt would know who that is and just say, these are the ingredients I'm planning to use. And then they can get back to you and say yes or no. But if it's a home rem, like if there's nothing synthetic in it, it's almost certainly going to be okay, but you should just check because sometimes there's weird little caveats in there.
Okay. Thank you.
But yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I think I'd love to hear what you have success with too, because anytime I can share with farmers a more sustainable way to control pests is great.
One thing that I definitely wanted to try because they spoke about the potato beetles and all of that. Because one of the things, and I'm also doing a 4-year homeopathy degree course now.
Cool.
So one of the things is a concept called nosodes, where you make tinctures out of the diseased plant to capture the energy, and then you kind of spray it back in a diluted form. So the plant knows what's wrong within itself, and it starts correcting whatever is needed. So that one, its tincture is usually an alcohol. So if I don't think there should be any issue with getting approval for that.
No.
So that was the easy one. It's just the other remedies. When I looked, it's like, okay, how do I even explain to see if this can be used for organic certification? So that was my.
I think. Yeah, no, I think generally your certifier is only going to be concerned with the ingredients and making sure that so like with the alcohol, they'll just want to make sure that you buy alcohol that, for example, hasn't been made from GMO corn. So they'll want to know what type of alcohol you're buying. But generally they're just concerned about the ingredients, not the kind of why of it. So as long as you can submit that list, and if you have any trouble, let me know. I'll be happy to help you all too. But generally that's just best to send it to them and then they just say yes, and then you're totally in the clear.
Oh, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Because the thing with homeopathy is, because by the time it's diluted, the original substance is nearly gone. It's only an energy. So arnica as a plant that I know can get approval, but aconite would be treated more as a poisonous plant. But there's no original substance left because aconite is something that we use regularly in the homeopathic form. So that's where it was like, okay, how do you explain the concept to them without somebody going through a 4-year homeopathy degree? So
no, I think you just explained it great. I think if you just said that to them, and then I think I can't see why it wouldn't be okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Of course.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Glad there's been some good conversations during the break. I love it. Yeah, it's a little after 10, so we've got just under an hour left. We're going to 11. But yeah, just wanted to keep the discussions going. Open it back up at this point to any of our Big River Farms farmers on the call. If you have wholesale questions for any of our guests who are here today, just about what they presented, what they talked about as far as the businesses they work with, the organizations they work for, what their wholesale programs look like, anything you would like to learn more about. We'll just kind of open it up for questions and answers.
Yes,
Yeah,
hi.
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oops, sorry about that. Yeah, I was just wondering, are these, as a new farmer, I'm not sure about my yields, or so are there like contracts on amounts that you need, or how does that all work? And I guess it's open to everyone pretty much.
So to answer your question, at River Market, it's still kind of like it was back when Arial sold to us. Where I'm rebuilding my program and where I love to actually work with new farmers and help them hone their craft. I don't have to have whole cases. So, like a case of radishes normally is 24 bunches, but I can work with 12. Right now, I'm just trying to spread it out so I'm not getting all of my deliveries every 2 days a week, where I can get a few deliveries, even every single day. So I can transition from farmer to farmer to farmer. What I'm going to work on this year, especially if I'm working with newer farmers, is to try to get everybody as close to the same quality level and as close to the same bunch sizing as I possibly can, so that we have a little consistency as we work our way through the week and through the product that we're bringing in. So I tend, or at least our store tends not to actually sign physical contracts. It's a smile and a handshake and an agreement between the two of us that I'm not gonna say, yep, I want you to bring me 30 bunches of radishes every week and then go to somebody else and get it instead. The only time that anything would break is if I can't get the quality that we need for the consistency for our customers. And then I am more than happy to do exactly what Ariel is. Because I live so close to you, I'm just on Partridge Road. So I'm just on the other side of Square Lake from you guys. My son actually went to the school by you. So I'm like less than a 5-minute drive away from home. And I'm more than happy to come out and do work on site with you guys. I know that our store would be more than happy to support me in doing that with you as well.
Great, thanks, Trista. Did that answer your question?
Yes, that was, yeah. And anybody else, as you discuss, you can weigh in as well on how your philosophy or how you approach the farmers as you respond to other questions. Thank you.
I can chime in from a restaurant standpoint. We, in the past, we would just take as if we have specific case amounts and typically get deliveries twice a week, but really flexible with what the farms we work with can offer, and supplement from there, understanding that especially last summer was a more difficult growing summer. But we would like to strive for more consistency and more regular deliveries.
Thanks, Kate. I'll say for any of the farmers on the call, it sounds like, from what Kate said and what Trista said, like there's a lot of great support from external partners who are really interested in supporting you and buying directly from you. And I think they both highlighted the point that, it's a good practice as a farmer to kind of have a sense of what you have in the field based on your seed starts and your crop planning, and getting into the habit of doing like a weekly harvest estimate just for your various markets, whether you're selling to the Big River Farm CSA, if you have your own independent CSA, farmers market sales, or external wholesale partnerships. So just giving a pitch for that, if you want to learn more about how to do those harvest estimates, come talk to me, come talk to May. May has a wealth of knowledge and tons of experience farming. So each week she and I do a weekly field walk to kind of gauge what you all have ready for our CSA program. So talk to us about, what that process looks like and how you can start, thinking about that on a weekly basis too, to establish more of these external partnerships and create those relationships, create those offers of produce to potential buyers. Anybody else, any other guests want to share, how you kind of approach your wholesale buying and what that looks like for farmers?
Hey, Matt, this is David from the Good Acre. I'll just weigh in and say that I love contracts because it's a clear Well, it depends on the scale, of course. I mean, I think if you have somebody call you up and say, we would really like to buy 10,000 pounds of carrots from you for our carrot baby food, and it's going to be the biggest thing since sliced bread, you need a contract from somebody like that, because it's the contract. What it does is it protects you as the farmer, and it spells out exactly what the expectations are between the farmer and the buyer. So, I mean, for a case of radishes or for that kind of scale, that's not important. But when you're going to buy the extra seed and plant the extra, you're going to rent the extra half acre, and you're going to pay out all this money to grow a larger quantity for a buyer. That's really when you want to have a contract to protect you, to make sure that that buyer's going to do what they say they're going to do, and that you both understand what the expectation is around that sale. Because we have had unfortunate situations in the past where new businesses have started up, or businesses that weren't local came into the marketplace and wanted to buy from farmers and made lots of promises, and then they didn't do what they say they were going to do, and farmers were left with a lot of stuff that then they couldn't sell. Because if you plant for a contract and then they don't buy it, it's very hard to find a place for it to go. So I would just advocate for, if you do get an opportunity that's significant, and it's making you have to plant more, to rent more, to do all those things in order to fulfill that contract, that's where you really want to have a contract in place.
So
Yeah,
David,
thanks,
I have
David.
a
Good
question.
points. Oh, I was just gonna say real quick, Veda, I like the input on contracts, just like thinking about it from the viewpoint of timing and scale. Like, I think it's good from a farmer perspective to think about those things as you're business planning, and thinking about what kind of markets that you want to approach. Like, for example, with our aggregated CSA program at Big River Farms, that's definitely contract based, partially because it's a subscription model, right, that customers buy into and pay for up front. So it's good to have those contracts to know that, we've got a plan in place for the season, and we know what crops each of you are planting and what we can buy directly from you for that program. So yeah, just think about, the scale of who you're selling to and what those buyers' needs might be when you're thinking about wholesale partnerships. And I know you mentioned a few times, David, timing. That's really important to think about too when you're thinking about your business planning and what markets you'd like to sell to, because every type of market probably has different timelines, right? So like David mentioned, for some of their larger programs, they really look to partner with more established farmers who can kind of take that long-term view, like in November, thinking about the following season and what you might want to contract for. Same with our CSA, right? At Big River Farms, we kind of do that process throughout the winter in December, January, and February, as you're seed buying and crop planning for your various markets. So just a few things to keep in mind. Go ahead, Veda, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question for David. So, but the intention of the contract is really good because it protects both the parties. But the thing that I wonder how it plays out is what happens if, say there's a contract for 10,000 pounds of carrots, and then it turns out due to some weather-related circumstances, I as a farmer, I'm not able to honor it. So what would be the consequence of that? Because that's a very big thing. So it's like, what kind of measures should we take as farmers so that, we are not committing more than what we can take on as a risk?
Yeah, it's a great question. I know our contracts at the Good Acre, they're pretty friendly. They're very farmer friendly, more so than you would get from Bix or Alberts or somebody else. But and that's because that's our job, is to help farmers. But in our contracts, we say that we understand when that weather is always going to be a factor. And we just ask that communication is so critical, so that if we are planning on that crop for you and you have a failure, we need to know that. I mean, if the seed didn't germinate or it germinated at 20% instead of 90%, we need to know that right away when that has germinated so that we can start to make other plans. So I think we're not gonna say you need to go out and buy the carrots and then sell them to us, but it's a mutual respect thing in terms of communication to make sure that we're all on the same page, and you let us know, and we know that there's problems, and the weather's getting arguably more volatile every year. So I think that just keeping those lines of communication open is important. And most people who write those kinds of contracts, the co-ops also, they understand that weather's a factor. And that's why they might have, a co-op when they're doing contracting, they might be doing something like, you're the A grower for carrots, and then we have a B grower and a C grower. So, they're covering their bases already. Most of the places that are doing contracting to kind of allow for that. But yeah, it should be understood. And again, it's a good reason to have a contract, because usually you want that spelled out in there somewhere that you're not responsible if there's a weather related failure.
And yeah, just to build on what David said, a real quick thing is normally those are called act of God clauses in the contracts, where they're kind of stating if something out of your control happens. But it is a really good question. It's important because I've seen contracts that don't have them. I remember the St. Paul School District for a while, did not have those in their contracts. I also just wanted to second what David said. Contracts and agreements are amazing, but I also think it's really important as a small farm that you vet who's going to buy your produce for whether they have a good reputation in the community for following through with what they do. Because in the end of the day, a contract is great, but if you can't afford to hire a lawyer, enforcing it isn't. So you need the person to just do what they said they would do. So a place like the Good Acre that has a really strong reputation of sticking behind what they said they would do, or somebody like Trista, where you can talk to other farmers that have worked with her. I think those are great places to work with. I think I would exercise a lot more skepticism, to David said, with places that seem to perennially show up and say they're going to start buying a bunch of produce and then never really follow through. Because whether or not you sign a contract, if you can't, go to court and imagine doing all that type of stuff, enforcing it may not happen. So I think the reputation is very important, and talking to your fellow farmers to see what their experience has been with those folks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ariel. Great points. Yeah, both David and Ariel, just thinking about, the relationship aspect and making sure that it's more than a transactional relationship, right? Like keeping those lines of communication open, really establishing a strong relationship, vetting the partners, like Ariel said, to see what their reputation is and, how that might play out in contracts. All great points. Thank you, everybody. Any other questions about this specifically? Yeah.
Hey, Matt, I want to just throw in one other thing too, that
Sure.
it's also something about that you should be thinking about as you build your farming operation in terms of how to invest in infrastructure and what kinds of things you need on the farm, because, especially with volatile weather, you may be more likely to get a contract for tomatoes if you did invest in a high tunnel, or you may be more likely to get a bigger contract for something because you do have irrigation. I mean, that's a big factor, especially after last year, that we were thinking about in our contracts this year. It's like, well, who has irrigation, and what are the crops that are most sensitive to that? And so we're going to contract somewhat based on that, because we have a larger likelihood that crop is going to be harvestable. So that's also something to think about as you build your farm.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, David. Mallory, I wanted to circle back around to you. Did you have a separate question that you wanted to ask?
Oh yeah, thanks, Matt. This is similarly a question for everyone. Do you have a list of your most desired produce items?
Yeah, I'll chime in. So yeah, we typically, the animals, they kind of have a pretty regular diet each week in terms of what we put in, their little feed cups and what we feed them after hours and stuff. But it's kind of tentative. And I'm actually, full disclosure, I'm not the person that orders the produce, but when I was looking over the invoices over the past year, it does seem like there's a lot of leeway.
So in terms of like the second tier produce, I know that it's not like you really don't know how or what percentage of your crop is going to be like that until you harvest it, kind of. So I guess in our situation, maybe it'd be useful to not have contracts. I'm not really sure. Like for example, if you harvest, 1,000 pounds of carrots and 100 of them end up being kind of ugly, we'd be more than willing to kind of take those as you kind of discover them, sort of a thing. But yeah, I mean, we do have a regular list of produce that we're kind of looking for, but it's not, it's tentative, I guess, basically. Because I mean, they eat really well to begin with, so it's not like if they get, romaine lettuce instead of kale, it's gonna be a big deal for the animals,
Yeah, thanks, Emily. Good thing to think about. Things to think about as a farmer as you're establishing these relationships really is knowing the scale of the wholesale buyer, what they're interested in, how much they want to purchase from you, and if there are contracts or if it's more flexible, like Emily said, kind of doing that weekly basis offer based on what you have that might be ready to harvest. So some good things to think about as you're establishing wholesale market relationships. Any other buyers or guests want to answer that question as far as produce lists or produce needs?
So I am currently just kind of trying to wrap up and get confirmations on a few growers that I had already had interest from. And after they return my messages, then I'll have a better idea of where my holes and my gaps are. And, anything that's a vegetable, we're pretty open to, even in small quantities, even if it's things that people are growing just because it's a comfort food for them. As long as we have a good way to market it within our store, we're pretty willing to try anything. We do have big things like, we go through about 250 bunches of cilantro a week. It's hard to find one farm that can produce that much just for us. But what having my 2-year leave of absence from the co-op gave me time to kind of reevaluate. And of course, being mainly a meat producer myself and a dairy producer, but I have gardened my entire life, and everybody's soil grows things different. And you have some things that are a struggle to grow. And the best farmers I've found so far grow the things that their soil is made to grow. The things that are easy to produce in their soil. Like me, I can grow carrots like there's no tomorrow. They'll be perfect, they'll be straight, they'll be beautiful, but it's a constant struggle to grow things like lettuce. And so I like to concentrate on the things that you do well. So when I started out in January trying to figure out what I was going to do for local season, I just approached everybody by saying, what do you do well and what are you proud of? Because my job as a produce manager is to showcase your hard work and just kind of continue with the product's life until it ends up in the customer's basket. So if you ever walk into River Market's produce department and you look at the wet case, it's kind of a big bountiful show most of the time. And, it's really my job to represent you. And that's kind of where I sit. So if you have things that you're really good at or you're really proud of, just send me an email listing those things off, and we can talk about where we can fit you into the plan, or if we can fit you into the plan. Then I can give you a list of where my gaps are, and you can weigh in on if that's something that you have to struggle with, or if that's something that you can do pretty easily. I don't want anybody to work harder than they have to, just to please me. That is, but you know.
Thanks, Trista. Kate, did you want to weigh in from a restaurant perspective as far as what you're looking for produce-wise from a sourcing standpoint?
Yeah, sure. Especially going into spring and summer, we have very consistent ordering schedules and ingredients. But following what Tricia said in the past, we've always kind of communicate with the farm with what do they grow the best, what can we get consistently and focus on that. But we do have a really consistent pound and ingredient desires.
I was just gonna, if you don't mind me jumping in, Matt, too. I think one other thing that farmers can do to kind of take it into your own hands is anywhere you go shopping. I mean, not now because very little's local, but anywhere you go shopping, what I used to do is just pop over to the produce section, even if you're just buying something else at the market, and see what's local and see what's not. Because sometimes you can get a lot of ideas, or if you go out to eat at a restaurant, ask what they're getting locally and what they're not, because oftentimes you might find that, hey, for some reason, the carrots just aren't local at this supermarket. Other stuff is, but the carrots aren't. And that's a great opportunity to be able to talk to that market about growing their carrots for them. So also to feel empowered to kind of do that work yourself as you're going through during local season and see, you know, because some crops, for example, like cucumbers, there might be 10 farms that are already trying to do it. So it doesn't make so much sense. But other crops, maybe, you know, nobody tried to grow hot peppers. And then it's like, great, that's a great crop for you to fit in on. So yeah, that's what I used to do.
Yeah, thanks, Ariel. Great point. I would say that's a great way to approach other markets too. Like just go do that research as a farmer, check out what's available, what's being sold, where there might be gaps that you could fill in and grow for. I'm thinking from like a farmer's market perspective too. If you're applying for a vendor permit at a farmer's market, like go to those markets when they're open during the season, check out who the vendors are, check out what they're growing and selling, and see if there's something that's not there that you might be able to grow, or some sort of a niche product that you could produce and grow and provide. So do that homework, do that research. Like Ariel said, like really take that step to educate and empower yourself and figure out, you know, where you might be able to tap into some of those missing gaps in the marketplace. I will add too that that's a great way to figure out what your pricing might look like as a farmer for what you want to be paid for those veggies, those products, those items that you're growing and creating. Go to the local co-ops, go to the farmers markets, go to the local restaurants that are sourcing from local farmers and see what they're either charging from a retail perspective or what those things are being sold for, to kind of get a sense for how you want to make offers for what you're selling.
And also, I just say quickly too, people love to hear from farmers. So never be afraid to advocate for yourself and ask, because some people, the worst case scenario is you'll ask if they could buy your stuff and they say no, and that's just where you started. But you run into a lot of people, like, I don't even remember Trista, but I suspect we met because I might have just cold called and said, hey, I've got produce, do you want to work with me? I think especially with smaller co-ops or restaurants, because the owners or the people that have ownership tend to be the people you can talk to. It's a great opportunity to just, you know, it's a skill you have to work on to feel comfortable with it, but just know that you have something of value. Every restaurant, every co-op, they want good, local, organic, healthy food. And so you're really helping them by bringing to their attention that you're available and you have good produce. So I'd really encourage everybody to have those conversations best you can.
Yeah, thanks, Ariel. I saw Fario, you had your hand raised a couple seconds ago. Did you have a separate question you wanted to ask? If not, anybody else, any other questions that you want to ask of our guests?
I have one question. You know, like I never expected this level of support from the local community for, you know, beginning farmers. But like, what have your challenges been working with beginning farmers? Like, what is it that we can do to make things, you know, easier for you? Because rather than, you know, focusing on a consistent supply with bigger growers and, you know, you're taking the risk what can we do to make it worthwhile for you?
I can jump on that. I think the one thing, especially at Big River Farms, is really helping with that, but bridging that communication gap of ease of ordering. I think a lot of restaurants tend to go more the US Foods, Bix route because you can tap on an app. So I think as a community, trying to find ways where we can connect more regularly and more instantly, where I'm not quite sure how to do that yet. And dream days, there would be an app that would connect farms to restaurants and local buyers, and we can all work together on this. But I think emailing and texting is great, and we love doing that with farmers, but maybe just working together to be responsive for each other.
Thank you.
Can I say something on top of that too about just ease of availability? Something that my farm has done is just use a Google form. Like there are apps, there are fancy apps that you can pay a lot of money for. We don't have the money, so until that happens for free, just like if you can have a weekly harvest estimate of like, oh, we know that we're gonna have at least this much available, you could put that into somewhere online and then send that to people. And then if it's a Google form, your buyer could just click on the box and submit the form, and then there's some confirmation that happens after that. But there's ways to get around it. It's not as maybe easy or as like aesthetically beautiful as a app, but that is possible. That's all.
Thanks, Mallory. I appreciate that insight from a farmer perspective and tools that you've used that aren't ridiculously expensive to help you do that. But yeah, like you said, like just thinking about doing those weekly harvest estimates and having some sort of inventory as the farmer so that you can provide that information to potential buyers, like Kate said, is really helpful. Did you want to weigh in at all, Ariel, from your perspective as a farmer of how you approach that?
Oh, here we are. Yeah, I think what you just brought up, Mallory, is a great example of like, there's maybe you sometimes look at examples, you go, this would be the ideal way to do it. But obviously as small farms, you don't have the money, and we can always farm fix things and find a smaller way to do it. I think that works on an even smaller scale. I would just send out an email to everybody that bought my produce once a week to say like, this is what I'm anticipating having this week, and this is what the price I'm going to anticipate charging is. And just giving people a heads up, especially at a place like a restaurant where, the menu might need to change, or some restaurants are very willing to even change their menu items. If they know, hey, you're gonna have a ton of broccoli, let's make something with it. And what I would really try to do, which is just a skill everybody will get, I know many people here farm for a long time, but if you're a beginning farmer, is doing that forecasting. So I'd also say, this is what I have this week, but next week, I think I'm gonna have a ton of cabbage available. And just, I think giving some buyers a heads up, both for the restaurants so they can plan menus, but even with a place like a co-op, like with Trista, maybe she didn't have a supplier for cabbage, so it was coming on the truck, and then she can go, okay, great, I can stop this Eeckhout truck showing up with cabbage now, because I know I'm going to have a bunch from a farmer. But just understanding that the cycle tends to work ahead of time. So the best you can do to kind of help people plan to help you, I think is really good.
Yeah, thanks, Ariel. I saw Whitney just put a question in the chat for the buyers. She asked, when do you usually make those purchasing decisions? Is there like a particular day of the week that you need those emails or updates about available produce from farmers? And I would add an assumption that I would guess it's probably different based on each buyer's needs. I don't know that there's like a standard day of the week. I think it's probably fairly flexible just based on the buyer needs. But if any of the buyers want to jump in and speak to that, that would be great.
So to answer that, there's no specific day of the week that is better than another to send a sheet or a form out saying what you're going to have, but you need to give that person enough time to be able to respond back and make those changes. Like Ariel was talking about, stop that truck so that you can go ahead and get it direct from the farmer instead. You know, most of the farmers I work with right now will send the availability list out, you know, anywhere from 36 to 48 hours prior to the order date. And, you know, I think most produce managers realize that it's an estimate, that there's no guarantee that all of it's going to be there, because it's pretty hard to go, yep, I'm going to have 24 bunches of kale and actually have 24 bunches of kale. You know, you might have 23 or you might have 26. There's a little variability in there. So, you know, because we're small, we can be really flexible as far as that goes. So anytime, you know, is really good. It's just give whoever's buying from you enough lead time to be able to actually view the list and ruminate over it and make those decisions that they need so that they can find those gaps. You know, at our store right now, we get deliveries 6 days a week. I'm hoping we can have 7 days a week once local season comes around, just by being able to get different products from different people throughout the week. And back to the question prior to that, when you're, you know, like Ariel said, you know, go out to the stores, see where the gaps are in the produce department and kind of survey the landscape, figure out where you might be able to fit in, and then bring a sample in. Don't, you know, I love having farmers come to me and say, I'd really like to sell to your store. But it's also nice if when they say, you know what, I would really like to sell to your store, and this is the kind of product that I'm able to produce. And when you bring those products, take what your average product is. Don't bring just the very best. Don't bring the worst. Bring that kind of middle of the road, the item you have the most of, quality-wise, so that there aren't any surprises. You know, everybody loves it when they get something that's way nicer than what they thought they were going to get. But if you bring somebody something really nice, and then what's coming in after it, once they say, yes, I'll take a case of that, if it shows up and it's nowhere near the quality of what you've shown them, then there's a little bit of disappointment and distrust, I guess, that every time an order is going to come, it's going to not be quite where it needs to be. It also gives you an opportunity to talk to the buyer at that place, store, restaurant, whatever it may be, and say, you know, does this meet your standard, or what can I do to improve? Or, and then you can also talk about price points at that point too. You know, some people in some stores, restaurants, whatever, will have different limits to what they can give you. So being able to see the quality, I've in many situations told farmers, you know what, that's really, really nice. And right now I'm paying this, and I can actually bring you up to this point. I've had farmers come in and say, I want $2 a pound for my shallots. And you go, well, I've been paying $6 a pound, and yours are way nicer than what I've been getting from the warehouse. So, you know, it helps to open up a conversation to bring, you know, 1 or 2 cucumbers or a bunch of carrots or something like that in, so that the person you're selling to can actually kind of evaluate, is this going to be a good fit going forward? And, you know, that it's a good jumping off point, I guess, is all I can say.
Thanks, Trista.
I would say that what we usually have regular ordering days, but another thing is when you build relationships with multiple buyers, Eleanor and Pierce at Strongheart, they would just email kind of end of season, like, we've got some last minute peppers that look really good, can you use these? Like what Ariel says. So the more relationships you have, restaurants and buyers, you know, there's a lot of flexibility too, with like, yeah, sure, we'll pop those on the menu, they look great, we love to buy. So there's a lot of that out there as well.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. I would say too, from a farmer perspective, like, get into that habit of knowing what you have in the field that might be ready that week or might be ready to harvest the following week. And think about that kind of like zooming out the bigger lens, the bigger puzzle of established relationships you have or established independent markets that you're selling to, and what might be left over after you sell produce items to those markets. So like if you have a farmer's market, vendor permit, if you have your own CSA program, kind of gauge what you have that you're selling to those specific markets that are established that you're running independently, and then try and gain a sense of what might be available still that you might not have a market for, or that you might be able to offer to a potential wholesale buyer that you don't have a contract with, that has some more of that flexibility, like a restaurant or a food co-op that's looking for those local items. Faria, did you have a question? I saw you raised your hand again. And you're on mute, Faria, if you want to ask anything.
Oh, hi, yes. So I just wanted to say thank you. I have a question, but can you give me a second? I wanted to thank all of you coming in and sharing what all this information is very helpful to us who are folks like us who's an immigrant, who are for ourselves, our first year in Big River Farm. This is very helpful to all of you, sharing us a different perspective of how you approach and how you do, how you sell, how you contract. And I just want to say also, David, thank you for your advice. And also, I believe you're right. Communication is the key for everything. And that's something that we all have to keep that in mind. And I really appreciate for the other idea about the agreement and such on. So I just want to say thank you to David and all of you guys. I have a question about to Ariel. And earlier, I'm going to see her name. Hold on. I know her name, but I just don't want to mess it up. Wida? That's right. So there was a question and answer about regarding to alcohol. Mm-hmm. And that you said whether that is okay, is been is yes, but then he was saying that some about it depends on the ingredients. That's all new to me about any alcohol being used and what is that? Can you talk about a little bit just for me and others? Like I know a couple other people might never heard about that alcohol being used for such a thing. Just for that, sure. I will appreciate Ariel and you guys can answer that. Okay. Thank you.
This is totally new, so I may not even try it in BRF, except for the simplest one, but this is where I think I'll need a lot of Ariel's help to figure out how to get it certified. So here is what happened. Two years ago, I had a tick bite and, within a week or so, I lost mobility of all my limbs completely. And then when I looked at what was, then I was told I had Lyme. And when I looked at what were the treatment options, people were talking about 20 years and $100,000 and so on and on. And I was like, nope, I'm going to start figuring out what I need to do. And at that point of time, the moment my condition stabilized and I could start moving, I started looking at homeopathy, and then things changed suddenly very drastically. And the next thing, within a month, I was back up and running and walking and doing everything that I needed to do. So then I started looking at homeopathy very carefully, and it was so fascinating what you could do. Like a serious back injury that I had, it took me less than $2 to resolve it. So then I was like, then finally I just decided to join for the homeopathy course. And then since I was also interested in farming, I started looking at how is homeopathy used for farming. And it turned out in Australia, one particular person had introduced it, and it went so much to the scale that the pesticide consumption had dropped significantly in a particular area. But at that point of time, the government started adding more and more taxes to the point that they had to close the business itself. But then now I'm thinking, because the whole pesticide supply chain is disrupted, and the same thing with fertilizers and all of that. So then it is like, how do you do things with natural substances that are available? So in homeopathy, there are two modes. One is that you take a substance, which allows you to mirror the health of the plant, and then introduce it in a tiniest quantity, which is more in the energy where the original substance is no longer there. The second one is that you can mirror the health of a plant by taking a diseased plant and making a tincture out of it, and again diluting it where just the energy left, and then you spray it so that it's reflected to the plant. And at this point of time, because it's, but we are introducing an artificial disease, the same disease, but at a higher potency, the plant immediately recognizes it as a disease and starts working to heal itself. So the potential is huge, because whatever we are seeing, not many people understand the gravity of the situation. One thing that I was asking David was about the contracts, if we can't honor it, because yesterday most of the Korean producers, they declared force majeure, which is a contract, act of God, and they said they won't be able to supply the animals contract. They won't be able to honor the animal contracts because they don't have enough produce for it, enough food. And that's because of the whole Ukraine situation that we have. And that is happening across the globe now. And you are going to hear it in the next 6-7 weeks. It'll be out in public. So we know the situation. So we don't know what will be available to us next week or not. So then the question becomes, what is it that we can get it within the next 50 miles? Can we learn to just do with the inputs that's available within the small area and support our local food system? So that's where the question came from. So the alcohol is usually used for
do we lose Veda?
No, she's been
just at the most important part.
She's frozen.
Maybe Matt just. Maybe while we're waiting for, I can just say the other piece of that conversation was we were talking about that when you're using inputs on your farm, any input, whether it's alcohol for a tincture or anything else, you really need to make sure the organic certifier has said okay to it before you use it, because you could lose your organic certification, and there's a lot of things that you just might not think of. So it's always best, and I'm happy to work with anyone to go through that process. But I was giving her the example of some alcohol is probably allowable, but some, if the alcohol was made from GMO corn, you may not be allowed to use that alcohol on your farm. So it's always best to check in with the certifier so they can kind of give you the correct information, so you don't find out later you've done something you can't undo.
Yeah, thanks, Ariel. Good point. Just remembering to check all the inputs to know whether it's organic certified or not. Yeah, Emily, what were you gonna say?
I just have an example from the farm that I work on. So it's an organic farm, and there is I actually don't know where this biochar was going to come from, but there was a local supply of biochar that was going to be just given to my farm. Like, they didn't need it anymore. It was kind of a byproduct, and the farmer I work for was like, yeah, absolutely, let's do it, and was basically about to get in his truck to go pick it up. And he called his organic certifier, and they were like, nope, you cannot do that. That you would lose your certification kind of immediately, I guess. And so that was kind of eye-opening. Like, biochar, it seems like a really natural substance, but our certifier wouldn't allow it. So yeah, just communicating with your certifier is definitely important.
Yeah, thanks, Emily. Thanks for that perspective, that farmer perspective. Veda, it looks like Veda's back. Did you want to continue what you were saying?
Yeah, so the whole purpose was, if we can somehow reach to the organic certifier, get approval for these, then it's another resource available for the whole community, farming community, to fall back on.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to ask Pierce, from your farmer perspective and your staff perspective at Big River Farms as an operation coordinator, do you have any insight into alcohol being, if there's like certified organic ones, or any experience with that? If not, we can always follow up too with Kaju, our program manager, and reach out to our certifiers to have these conversations. But just thought I'd pick your brain if you have any insights.
Hi, it's Eleanor here. I don't have any insight into that. I would check with Kazua or our certifier through MCIA.
Yeah, we would have to chat with Wendy. So Wendy's our MCIA organic certifier. So basically anything that folks are interested in using, we'll have to chat with Wendy first before we can use anything. But yeah, I'm not familiar with any alcohols that are like on our approved list already. So that would be something new that, again, yeah, we would have to get approved first before we use it.
Cool. Thanks, Pierce and Eleanor. Appreciate it. Just as a heads up, Emily, when you were talking about biochar, I know we were talking from a staff perspective at Big River Farms about exploring creating our own biochar as part of our compost system this coming season. So I know Emilio's been working on that as the sustainability coordinator. So excited to see if that turns into something and if we can use that, and if that's, you know, certified organic, if we can create our own biochar, that would be awesome. Okay, cool. Any other questions from farmers? Otherwise, I would ask the guests, our buyers, and the folks who joined us today, if you have any questions for us as staff or for us as farmers, as you're thinking about sourcing local produce. We've got about 10 minutes left to keep having some conversations. So just wanted to open the door to that as well.
I wanted to comment. I'm assuming the vendors, or I'm sorry, the people we supply would want us to deliver and drop off. Is that correct?
Yes, from our business, yes. However, so our home facility is actually in Scandia, which is, you know, just north of Marine on Highway 95. So, and there is a route from Scandia to Maplewood that goes pretty much like right by the farm and through Stillwater into the mall. So if there was ever a situation that would support farmers in which we would have to pick up from the farm, it is possible, but ideally, you know, we get all of our other produce delivered. So preferably delivered, but we can definitely make exceptions to be able to support farmers.
Thanks,
for
Emily.
River Market, we tend to, well, yeah, for River Market, we would need you to deliver to us. If we ran out to every farm, we'd be on the road all day. So yeah, you know, and delivery can be once a week or delivery can be multiple times a week. We're not too far off the beaten path if you're going back towards the Twin Cities. So it's kind of an easy loop around proximity wise to you.
Yeah, anybody else want to jump in? Definitely something to think about from a farming perspective is that capacity to do deliveries, whether it's for a wholesale market or doing deliveries for, you know, to drop sites if you've got a CSA, or packing up a vehicle to bring things to market, a farmer's market.
Hey,
Matt, this is
go. Oh, go ahead. Was David, did you want to say something?
No, if you have to go ahead.
I have to go, and I just wanted to say thank you so much, Matt, for putting this together, and everyone for coming. It really is amazing to see this kind of support, especially for new farmers. And so just thank you so much, and I'll see everyone soon.
Thanks, Mallory.
Yeah, Matt, I was just going to say, I mean, it is something to really think about as you're starting out as a farm too, is, you know, when you're the only person on your farm, obviously, when you're not at the farm, nothing's getting done. So, I mean, that really speaks to delivery and how much time you want to spend on the road and whether or not it's worth the money. And that's true of farmers market too. You know, it sometimes can take, you know, it's going to take 8 hours to get packed up and go to farmers market and get unpacked and come home. So your time is worth money, you know. I mean, if the stuff's not getting weeded in the field because you're out on deliveries or market all day, you all of a sudden may have lost $1,000 come August because you didn't get that stuff weeded in a timely manner. So it's you know, delivering the $50 order all the way in the cities that takes you 3 hours, if that means you're going to lose $1,000 because you didn't get those onions weeded, you know, that's something to always be thinking about. You know, like, is this really, is the you can't get that time back. So make sure that you've got that time to use, or see if there's an alternative way you can find someone else to take that stuff to deliver it for you, because it really does take away from your time to get work done on the farm.
Yeah, good points, David. Time is definitely money, and especially as an independent farmer, you've got to juggle, you know, your time management with what you want to do. I will say from the staff perspective at Big River Farms, that's one of the things that we are always thinking about too, that delivery aspect and how we can provide some support and resources there. So for example, for our CSA, where we source, you know, food from multiple farmers on a weekly basis, where it's changed from year to year, but this coming year we're hiring a contract driver, and we have vehicles through the food group. So you won't have to do any of the CSA deliveries. Similar with the food shelf program, the local food for every table food shelf purchasing program. We have existing delivery drivers and trucks that will come to the farm once a week to pick up those harvests and bring them back to our food bank in New Hope. So there'll be some delivery support there, but something to think about for sure. If you have your own independent markets that you're pursuing, is having that capacity to do your own deliveries, or to potentially hire somebody or have a family member or a friend help out with deliveries. Or think about it from the perspective of, you know, cooperative business development or collectivizing resources, right? Like if you can partner up with some other farmers and maybe go in together on renting a van or paying somebody to do deliveries for multiple farms and maybe getting a price discount that way. I know Casual mentioned there was potentially, nothing concrete, but potentially a farmer who's in our program this season who was thinking of doing just that, of creating a delivery service, of buying a delivery van and then, you know, paying a small fee to farmers to collectively use that as a resource. So something to think about there too. Any final questions? I'm getting totally distracted by your adorable dog, Trista.
I have a question. So it seems like Big River Farms has a lot of, you know, community resources for farmers. Does that also include kind of like a farm-wide kind of produce list, or is that like, do we have to reach out to each individual farmer at the farm, or is there a resource for like our produce order to kind of just get a big list of like everyone's produce for the week and what they have to offer? Is there something like that?
Yeah, good question. Unfortunately, because of our kind of unique setup as an incubator farm, we don't have the staff capacity to create a like master inventory list of what every farmer's growing. This season, we have 20 farm teams who are farming at Big River Farms, each with their own varying acreages that they're growing on, and various crops that they're growing for, and various markets that they're producing for. So it's a little tricky from a staff capacity perspective to have that like master inventory list, which we, like I said, we don't have that, unfortunately, which I know is, like we talked about a few times already on the call, is like a standard that a lot of buyers look for, especially like Ariel said, I think earlier, if you're used to purchasing from the Bixes or, you know, even like Co-op Partners Warehouse, I think a lot of them are just used to being able to reach out and have that like simple process of using an app or going online and having that master inventory list. So there's definitely more of a need to have that open relationship, that dialogue, that ongoing conversation between farmers and between buyers. So I'd say, yeah, reach out to, if you're a buyer on the call, reach out to interested farmers. If you're a farmer on the call, reach out to the folks who are here today and keep having these discussions and see what you can make work out.
Okay, I'm gonna answer Emily. Yeah, this is the yeah, we have at the farm, we have farmer. This is the it's a really good question, because here is education for the farmer, and we would like to the farmer working with like the contract like you and whoever contract for the wholesale or wholesale kind of a little bit big, but we like them to work with the contract. And so we can guide them into, that's how our program is. And this is what we call education. And so that's how we're gonna guide them toward. And so now this is gonna be, if you want to buy something, then just goes directly to the farmer, and we are willing to help them to guide with you too. Yeah.
Yeah, good points. Thanks, May. Appreciate your
Thank you.
insight. Yeah, I can definitely serve as that point person too in my role. If you as a farmer or if you as a buyer wants to connect, you can definitely reach out to me and I can keep creating those relationships and connecting folks and having those conversations. All right, thanks everybody. We've got just a couple minutes left. Before we all jump off, I'm gonna pull up this poll for the farmers on the call. If you don't mind answering a couple questions just about today's session to help us with planning for future sessions, that would be great. You should see a poll that just popped up on your screen. If you could answer those. No, it didn't pop up. Oh, I think I have to click launch. Okay, now maybe it popped up. But otherwise, thank you everybody for being here today. Appreciate you taking the time. Thanks for the great discussions and for providing insights and feedback and support. Let's keep these conversations open. Like I said, I'll share out a spreadsheet with contact info from all of the buyers and the guests and the vendors who are here today joining us. If you all would like farmer contact info and farmers are okay with that, I'm happy to share that information too to keep these conversations going. But yeah, thanks again. Appreciate you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks everybody. Have a good
See
day.
everybody. Yeah.
You too. Stay
Bye.
safe.
You would point at the side of the wall.
Okay, believe it.
Thanks, Andres.